So we're here to talk about your album, Dinner, which is like the fifth.
Yeah, fifth project we've done together. Second full-length album.
Okay, but you went through the whole Hobbits, like breakfast, second breakfast, 11Z.
We did, a breakfast, seconds, lunch, and then those were the EPs, and then Potluck and Dinner are the albums.
They've all gotten bigger and bigger is the way it basically happened.
I didn't realize that till probably the other day that I thought Potluck was about the same size or same length. I just realized, there's 2 extra songs on this one.
It's kind of a trip because that's how I live my life. I generally have like a tiny little breakfast and then I go all out at dinner time. I don't know why. So it works, but also it's just crazy to see your musical output. I mean, 5 years ago, not even 5 years ago, I'm sorry, 5 projects ago.
Yeah, 3 years ago.
3 years ago. And it took us however long for us to get comfortable putting out that like 5-track EP, right?
There's which one, Breakfast?
Breakfast.
That was 6.
6 tracks. And now I think it's 14 on this one.
Yeah, 14 on this one.
Gosh darn, that's a huge difference. But you've come a long way, honestly. Like, this is ridiculous to see you put this much out. Not that I ever doubted you in the beginning, but like, you just don't know what to expect with people. And here you are like, I got 14 tracks. Let's do a whole other album. And we just finished another one. Like, during the pandemic, we put out one already. So why don't we start with that? Were all of these beats made while you were sheltering in place?
Yeah. Definitely for Dinner, this album, they were all shelter in place. Potluck, it was a little in between. Some right before, and then most of it still during shelter in place. But also, I wasn't, it doesn't really matter. It was during the pandemic, but I wasn't sheltered in place for this whole album. So I was back to work. So that was actually even harder to stay on task for this album, just because now 8 hours or more out of the day I'm not at home. So it was kind of like back to the grind before the pandemic for this project, which was actually wilder to me because for the longest time I could only make EPs with the amount of time I would delegate. But since social life had pretty much come to a standstill, during the pandemic, I was able to spend a lot more time on music.
So you sort of reorganized your free time after getting so much time to yourself, basically.
Yeah, and carrying the momentum from when I was sheltered in place for 6 months. We made Potluck, and then once we were done with Potluck, I already had a couple demos I was playing around with, and then I think within a couple weeks after we released Potluck, I already had 2 demos I was working on, which was No Place for Me and Find Your Hand.
And which ones are those again?
That's why I paused, because I was thinking of the beat names. That's Sil and Tensoon.
Okay, so that's one thing for me. I'm going to need to ask you how you come up with your names, because for me as the engineer, when I got these, they all had names that I didn't know what they meant. Like, I don't know what Sil is, and I don't know, what was this one, Tensoon? I didn't know. I was like, it's a 9-year-old? Soon she'll become 10. I don't understand how this is relevant to this track, but they're all named differently now. But how do you go about naming things generally?
It's all those ones that you're naming are like character names from books I was reading. So Sil is from a book series called the Stormlight Archive. Tensoon was from the Mistborn series. There's one that was like the Broken Earth trilogy I was reading. That was Cyanite. That's we call it the song No. And and then Bellatrix is from Harry Potter. Like, it's just whatever I'm reading at the time when I'm making beats. Like, I don't know, making beat names it's cool, but at the same time it's kind of like, who the fuck cares? It's not gonna be the song title. So like, I'll just think of a character in the book I'm reading at the time. Like, I'll just name this one Bellatrix, and then
so it's a placeholder name.
Yeah.
So from your producer standpoint, because you do make all your beats, you just need to get a name. I'm reading this book. That's the name of the track. I'm gonna make it. Here we go.
Because even if you look like in the file where I keep all the beats, it'll have a bunch of names. It'll be like Bellatrix, Lupin, Sirius. You know what I mean? Like, it'll be a bunch of names, and then I could even kind of think, that was when I made that beat because I was reading that book, kind of thing. Yeah,
that's nice. I recently switched a couple of years ago to dates, and I would just put the dates. Like 8, 11, 18, and after doing that for a year and a half, I did like the dates and then a word afterwards. But now when I send beats out to people, everybody's like, so what is this date? Why is it so important? And I'm like, yo, that's just when I made it. That's no relevance. Like, or like, what do these numbers mean? Is it like a code or something? Is it like a, something where you type it in on a website? I'm like, bro, Not at all. Like, that's really dope, but no. Okay, because when I was mixing the songs, and I'm like, okay, what does this have to do with being 10 soon? Is this like you expressing yourself? Like, I really...
No, that's the thing too, is usually by the time I send you shit, I already have a title of the song thought of. This one, I was sending you shit so quickly. Like, I made the song, wrote it, did the lyrics. Like, I was still working with the title, and I would just send it to you. Wow. Then, I did that a couple times previously. Like, I would name it after the person I was sampling, but that was it. The other ones usually had a name. These ones, I was just sending them to you so quick that I didn't even take the time to think of the title till later. Then later I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm definitely not going to name it this. You know what I mean?
I was ready to have them be all of their starter names, and then when you change them, honestly, Find Your Hand is like a way more appropriate name
than 10 soon.
I like it a lot, but I wasn't, it's not my job to question that shit. I was just like, all right, this is 10 soon. That's a dope song and a very interesting name. Like,
that's the thing too, is since I was reading the books, like it would be cool to name all these fucking songs after characters in books, but a lot of them didn't apply to what the song's about later. You know what I mean? So like, I feel like if anyone did recognize the name, they'd had this false expectation that it's going to have something to do with them, and it would be fucking not at all.
See, when I saw Bellatrix, and which I'm on that song, and we're working on it together, I'm like, is he trying to say that like Bellatrix has like, a multiple personality disorder? I think she might be schizophrenic in the book, which is like interesting because, we have my friend Zach on it. He's got mental issues of that same sort. So I'm like, well, this is such a trip. No, just so happened to be the name that you named the beat.
I was reading Order of Phoenix that day when I thought, I'll make this beat.
I was really pulling from that. It just goes to show you how you could just kind of name stuff, and people will be like, oh, this is about something relative. Wow, that's really interesting. So I know one thing, when you were just sending me these things in the beginning, we had a sort of a bumpy start somehow compared to Potluck, which was, it worked, but we were trying to level up the game, and we had gone through different mics and to different places of recording.
Oh my God. Different spots, different mics, different fucking like houses. Like I was all over the place. So for everything before dinner, I was using that Yeti USB mic, and that was the best thing I knew how to use. It was $200. I bought it like 10 years ago, and it just worked for me. And even when we started working together, you would express that, of course USB mics aren't, the greatest, but you're like, this one's for some reason works for your voice.
It really
did. I was just like, what? I'm just going to, play it cheap and just keep rocking with this mic I've had for 10 years. And then right around this project, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna invest into something new. I was like, I've been using the same equipment this whole time. Might as well invest in something new just to try it out. And so that's when we started talking about location, because I was no longer at my house. I was at my mother-in-law's house with my wife. And I didn't have the spots that it wasn't as quiet, you know what I mean? Her grandma's in the next room watching TV, or and there's a lot of common space. And that, for Potluck, I would find that time in the day where I would just go out there when like maybe her mom was doing something in the garage or something, and my wife was teaching online. I'd be like, all right, here's my moment. And I would have about 30 to 45 minutes to record a couple of verses, and I'd set up my little soundproof wall, set up the mic, do my thing, and then I'd just take it all down, and I was done. And then that was while we were all sheltered in place. So I had time in the day to kind of figure out, well, when can I do that? Now when I was back at work, I was like, I can't really do that as much. My window is a lot more limited, and we're all getting home from work and shit. So that's when we were actually started talking about this mic. And because it was a dynamic, help me out, a dynamic mic. And so theoretically, like, this is going to work perfectly. And then once I did about, I think I had only sent you 3 songs, but I think I had 5 songs recorded with this. I had Tensoon, Sil, Dens, Knowledge, and I'm not mixing up the actual names and the beat names.
I know.
And Bellatrix. All that was recorded on this. And I had sent you 3 songs, and then just personally, I just didn't like how it came out, and especially in comparison to even the older mic, or my old USB mic, which I know wasn't as good as quality. So we had that struggle for a while with this mic, trying to get it to work. And then I got the Roswell that you recommended to me. Man, I love that motherfucker too, man.
That mic is something else.
And just for about the same price, it was like a $50 difference. And then it was finding a good spot, a good corner, because I had to worry more about what was around me. Mm-hmm. And so I went back to my dad's house to find spots to record and set up, and then I tried using a closet space at his house, and I ended up just finding a spot in me and Isabel's room, right by my computer and shit, where I was gonna use this one, but just a little bit to the angle, and I sent it to you, and you're like, oh, this is the best one. I was like, all right, go fucking figure.
It was so upsetting for me, honestly, because we were like going back and forth for so long on this. We're like, let's try this room, let's try this setup. We're FaceTime, like, what if we set it up? Like, no, don't put yourself in a closet. Don't put yourself in the closet. It's bad for music, at least. But it was just not ideal.
Yeah.
And then it just worked in the most bizarre place.
And I'm like bouncing back and forth because, like, you know, after work, I get home, and then I'd drive over to my dad's house with all my stuff, set it all up. I'd record for hours because I'm so bent on re-recording these songs and also trying to catch the magic I had when I made them. And I'm like getting kind of frustrated. I'm trying to like rap a love song, but I'm like irritated because, you know what I mean? Like I just not catch. And then what ended up finally
I do remember that.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
What ended up finally happening was I spent, I think, 3 days re-recording just 3 songs, you know? And the same verses over and over and over. And I went home and there was something I wanted to change, and I was too tired to go back to my dad's. And I was like, no, fuck it. I just sat it there. I'm like, let me just try real quick. And you're like, oh, yeah, that one works. What's that one? I was like, fuck.
At least we found it.
Yeah. You know
but I
mean?
was like, oh, man, we fucked up. Like, I feel so bad. Like, dude, we had spent so much time. Like, you were literally building a vocal booth at one point.
By the time I had bought the second mic, this one I couldn't return anymore. That's why I'm using it now, and any opportunity I can, because
can't let it go to waste. Yeah. It works perfectly in these situations, or for the live videos you've been doing, the performances. It's a great way to utilize that mic, because you could use that at a train station and you would just get your voice.
For a while, it was just standing there, and I'll just look at it and be like, man, damn.
At least you found a use for it. So let me ask you this. Is there like a theme for this album? Like either musically or lyrically, or possibly both? Anything that sort of ties them all together?
Lyrically, no, because lyrically, no, because usually it's kind of like a diary to me. Whatever is going on in my mind at the time is what I write about. And because I want it to reflect where I'm at. So almost like every project I have, when I listen to it, like my opinions aren't always the same. So like I listen, I'm like, oh yeah, I see. I was thinking that. Sometimes I'm like, damn, dumbass. Or sometimes I'm like, damn, man, I used to have a much better outlook on some of that shit. So there wasn't really a theme for that as much as just kind of documenting where I'm at. Maybe for the theme for probably production wise, there were a couple though.
What were those?
One was on Potluck. I realized I got a lot of good reception from the sample flips. I sampled our friend Marjorie and our friend Joni, and I got a huge kick out of sampling people I knew. And I don't know if I ever explained this to you, but like I swore off sampling for years.
Whoa, I did not know that.
So like early, I'm about to go into a huge tangent. I'll loop it back, I promise.
We believe in you.
2010 and 11, 12, 10 and 11, I sampled like my whole first 2 albums with The New Hope, my rap group with Thomas, I sampled 90%. I was definitely the type of style you hear on this, like that, but just not as well developed. Mm-hmm. But I realized I wasn't learning shit musically. Chords, I wasn't learning, I wasn't developing or, getting better. So I got to a point where I was like, fuck it. I'm not going to sample anything more. From now on, my beats are going to be everything I make. I didn't use loops, samples, all that stuff. And a lot of it started off mad simple at first because, I didn't have any music theory learning. I took a guitar class in high school, and I'm just kind of putting chords and melodies together, and that's it. And then so when I got to Potluck and I tried sampling, I did one on Breakfast. That was a rare one. And then the Potluck, when I sampled those 2, I liked that reception. And I thought, you know what? I might do more. Because I remember you had even said when talking about Potluck, you're like, I would almost want a whole EP of songs like this. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of like, you know what? Fuck it. And I really liked sampling people I knew. So I was kind of like, that's when I started. It was like digging in the crates, but just like online, looking through people's social media, like who do I know through music? Who have I met that I could reach out? Hey, can I sample this song? Can I sample this song? Or I was talking to you or Jay Panda, like, hey, can you help me get in touch with this person? Or would you recommend someone? And then so that's one huge theme, long ass tangent. But
you brought it home.
So one theme was the sample flips of local artists, and the other theme was like bucket list songs. For a long time, I didn't have the means, and the means in a big way is you in certain situations is making the type of songs inspired by certain genres. For instance, like Perspectives with you and Zach. I always wanted, I love the rock rap fusion. That used to be my shit. Middle school, I loved Linkin Park.
It has a good place in my heart.
You know what I mean? Like that was my shit. And then later when I started making hip hop, I didn't want to make that like is my main genre, but like I did want to experiment with it, but I don't play guitar. You know what I mean? I don't play drums, you know, and I also, when I the few chords I did know how to play, I didn't know how to properly record it. You know what I mean? I didn't have a interface at the time. You know what I mean? So when we started working on that song, I was like, yo, I know someone who could play guitar really well and make that shit sound fucking tight, you know? And that's how we did that. And then you played guitar and Zach played guitar on that.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it's kind of like, it just came this huge, and that was one bucket list track, the rock rap fusion. And I didn't know I didn't know that, like you just said, holds a special place in your heart, but I didn't know Zach really liked Linkin Park at one point, because he even told me, he was like, yo, I channeled Chester, you know, when I'm making this. And I was like, me and him didn't even talk about it, but I was like, yo, that was my favorite band forever, dude. So I couldn't have picked a better person to do a song like this with. And then there was Hardest Thing to Say, which has more of a folky influence to it. And, you know, I'm not a singer, but I always wanted a song like that. And then there's Delay with Isabel. I always wanted to do like an R&B song that she sang, and I'm just like the feature artist. Like
it's
I wanted
so
that.
crazy how you did that, but you made it.
Yeah,
you made the whole thing, and it has a place on your album. And here it is. It's like, you know, you rapping, and then suddenly there's this female voice, and she's the primary artist on that track. And then here you are, for your feature, like, oh, I got the verse in the middle. What's up? And then you're out. Like, it's so 90s, so early 2000s. Unbelievable. I love that track. What a standout track. Like, so ridiculous.
Yeah.
What differences would you say you found creatively with you and I working together compared to the last albums?
We had joked about it at one point where I was kind of like, I can't tell if we're getting really good at working together or if I'm just like not as like if I just care less now about, you know, how it comes out. Because before I used to be super nitpicky, especially the first couple albums when, like, you know, we barely knew each other, or the first couple EPs for the projects. I was like, everything I wanted to sound exactly how I did. And there's a lot of ego in there. And then as they progressed into to Potluck, I was kind of like, all right, you know, I'll let him have his, you know, he clearly knows a lot more about this than I do. You know what I mean? And like, I'll see what he's talking about. Let him show me. And then another one that happened was Prison. I don't know if you remember when Skeptic sent his vocals the second time. You were working on it for a while, and there's a little 4-bar loop right before his vocals come in. From
the woods?
Yeah, from your sample. And it's just the guitar sample. And one of the versions you sent me, it had this melody playing in there. It was like, I don't know if it was a synth or what it was, but it was part of the production you had added. And I was kind of like, in the notes, I was like, all right, well, I mean, it totally hit me abruptly because I don't remember there being, you know, all the other versions didn't have that, but I mean, I dig it. And you're just like, fuck, that's not supposed to be there. And I was like, oh, I mean, it's up to you. And that's totally a freedom. I don't think I didn't give any freedoms like that earlier in the earlier projects, because I'll be like, yeah, you know, I was so focused on how I wanted it to sound, by how I made it, how I orchestrated it, and all that like I just didn't. It was a lot of it was ego. You know what I mean? I'd made all these projects by myself for years before we started working together, and then it was just being more collaborative with it, and then we got to a point where, like, you know, I'm so much more lenient in a good way, to where like it benefits the tracks so much more. It you know, it's almost to a degree where I was limiting the potential of the tracks if it was only what I thought the tracks should sound like.
You are no longer in that frame of mind. I will also say, I feel like ego is such a harsh word for you to throw that out there. I didn't pick it up as ego. I feel like as an engineer, I work with people all the time, and they have their sound and they want it to sound their way so much that I will often mix people's projects the way that they want it, even though I don't want it to sound that way because it's your music at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But I don't know if ego is the right word as much as it is their vision. You know your music best. And that's one thing that I think you're doing now more than ever is that song, for instance, and a couple others. But we'll use this example. You suggested that we change the verses around.
Yeah.
And I had never thought of that. Like I had produced, our feature and you're like, what if we swap it? What if we do this? And what if we do that? And I was like, whoa, like, who are you?
Well, because it also started changing because for that song, there's my production I made for my verse. There's the production I made for Voltaire's.
Completely different.
Yeah, for Voltaire's verse. And Voltaire was at the end of the song. And originally, Chad had rapped over my production. But I had said, hey, what if, the beat changed and you did your production, much more like a Double Dragon, situation. And then once you made it, like what you made sounded so epic. And then the melodies and stuff in Voltaire's verse were essentially the same, just with different instruments as mine. So it just feels like it should go me, Voltaire, then Chad, instead of me, Chad, Voltaire. Then we, that was just one of the examples of us just no longer just having a vision like, all right, it should sound like this. Just like, all right, let's try it like that. Let's send me 2 different versions and we'll just listen to both of them.
We totally did
Fuck
that.
it, we'll see what happens.
What do we call it? PVD and PDV. We're like, let's see which one, know? And that was, I feel like that's the best way to work. It's we're so creative, we're open, we're down, like I could easily been like, no, this is just the way that the track is, bro. Like it could have just as easily done that, but I'm glad that we did that change because I do like the way that it flows, and then having the last the last chorus with that one little synth added that I freaked out about for so long. That was so difficult, but that's what it's like. Producing, you got to be collaborative, you got to be open-minded. There's one more song where you had something like that.
Was it No Words Left with the guitar?
No Words Left. We did that to each other, actually. It was like we're like playing catch or something here. You sent me that song and I heard the chorus and I was just like, dude, I'm listening to it in my backyard, staring at my garden in the sunshine. And I'm like, dude, I hear acoustic guitar. Like I hear something. I don't know what it is. The texture, it's there. I'm not sure how to make it work. And you were like, I'm not really sure. Like maybe you could go for it, and if you could show me if you want to put the time into it, dude. I'm like, I'll do it. I'll do it. Give me a shot. Give me a shot.
Because usually it's me saying, hey, can you add guitar to this? Like, yo, I want to hear some guitar on this, because that's something my older music totally lacked, like I mentioned earlier. So usually I'm approaching you for the guitar, or if you do bring it up, I'm like, yeah. This one, I was the first time where I was like, yo, am I about to say no? am I about, like, I'm always asking him to play guitar. Like, am I about to say, like, nah? But I just didn't hear it. Like, in my vision for the song, I was like, I don't know. I was like, it already has a lot going on, I feel like. But then I was like, if you want, I was like, I'm totally down for you to prove me wrong too. And then you added it, and I was like, oh fuck yeah, it needs that.
That pressure, that pressure though. You were like, all right, prove me wrong. I was like, oh, that's not quite the words I was expecting you to say. Like,
well, yeah, because that was the first time too where it was kind of like an executive decision where I was like, I mean, if you prove me wrong, then awesome, we'll keep it. But at the same time, I was kind of like, fuck, like, I know what every mix is going to be dope. It was more like just the creative decision. Like, not that it wasn't good enough for the song, it was just like what I heard for it. And then once I heard you add the guitar you added, I was like, all right, yeah, keep it. Now have that shit playing at the end of the song too, and then it's stripped down chorus. And I was like, all right, now that the chorus is done, just let it keep playing for a little bit. Just loop it.
I was like, damn, I should have played this part better.
Another 20 seconds. Just let it keep going, man. Fuck it.
It's so weird too because I don't even know I don't remember if you even like this band, but I got the weirdest Sugar Ray vibes from it. It's so strange. I don't know why.
Like I could hear. I feel like it's the guitar and the kind of hip hop influences, and then the way I do my vocals. Like I could hear it.
It's just so subtle, and I was like, bro, the guitar needs to be there. We have to fill this out.
Totally not intentional, but yeah, I could hear it.
It's so barely that though. It's like the subtlest vibe, and it's like you don't even really like them probably. I'm not really getting that.
I liked it for a minute. Yeah, we all did in 2000.
It was on Cartoon Network. They had the music videos. I was like, this is nice. It's nostalgia over anything, but it just ended up, I just heard it and it doesn't stay in that vibe. The song changes so much with the one-word samples, your verse, Mike's verse, the breakdown. I mean, you remixed the hell out of that, and you got the vocal stems from him. Bless. So
the thing about that is I think you felt as well as there's a huge pressure. dude, so like, I mentioned earlier, I'm doing all these sample flips
from all the local people that are tied to for
so
most
like,
of them.
Before, I'm sampling, people I've known. One of the people I sampled on Potluck I've known since 6th grade. Another one I met probably 4 to 5 years ago, but it was my wife Isabel's best friend since kindergarten. So these are people like I've just known for a long time, and they make music. And this time I was stepping out, sampling people I've known One Word for a while, but not super close. So I'm just like, I'm still in that like, mode of like, I want to impress him. And then so when I'm thinking of sampling all these people, I sampled this One Word song, which is Everything's Fine, I Guess, which is one of my favorite songs by him. So that's another pressure. I don't want to sample one of my favorite songs by an artist and fuck it up. So I start working on it. I make the beat. I don't remember if I even added a verse yet, but I had basically like a very early demo of the beat, and I sent it to him and I asked him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that's cool. Would you like this? Would you like the acapella of the vocals?" And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, "Oh yeah, big homie moment. Hell yeah, he's helping me out." And in the back of my mind, I'm like, "No, that motherfucker's like, I want that shit to sound right." He was like,
I felt that too.
Like I feel like he was totally doing me a solid by sending me the acapella, because everyone else, we're just working with the song that their original song. This one, I'm getting the actual clean acapellas, and I'm just like, he's probably like, I don't want any excuses. This better sound is like the best it fucking can. I
mean, but you did so well. It doesn't sound like a sample. It sounds like he's literally on the song.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, is it didn't have as much of him on it originally too. Once I got the acapella, I had so much free range to, like, because originally the whole intro, where it's just his vocals in like a drum loop, that wasn't there at all. The song just kind of started up, at the point after that. But once I had the acapella, I was like, I'll put this chunk here, and then I'll put this in the fucking bridge there later. Originally it was just the chorus. That was
You flipped the hell out of that track. It is such a different vibe from the original, and it's so good, and it's like, it's unbelievable. And that same pressure that you felt, what was yours? You're trying to impress people. I'm trying to not let my friends down now. And these people associated with you, I'm like, oh, great. One Word. He's the big homie to me too. Yeah. Also an engineer, also a producer.
I know he pays attention to the mixes. I know he be mixing like a motherfucker with his own music.
Sweating, like, that scene in Airplane, which is just water gushing down. I'm like mixing like, oh, Jesus, man. Why would you do this to me? I don't mean to cut you out, but this concept is like surprisingly original to sample only local people. Like I'm not even that old. I've been doing this maybe 10 years now, more than 10 years now. That is a crazy fucking concept that, like, when you had put this together, I'm like,
well,
I met 500 motherfuckers and nobody thought of doing something like it.
Yeah, that's the thing, because like I'm sampling people I know or I have a mutual friend with. Like, through J Panda, I was able to get a hold of Courage. Through you, I was able to get a hold of Gabriella. Like, at the same time, it's kind of like, I don't want you guys to be putting, not your reputation, but like, you hitting them up like, hey, can my friend sample you? They would like, it's pressure on me, because like, so if I send her a fucking beat that sounds like shit, sampling her with her voice, and everything I added just doesn't work, or my lyrics do not align with maybe her lyrics, or even people's personal beliefs, you know what I mean? All this type of stuff, and I'm constantly thinking it's this pressure, because it's kind of like, it's not like I'm sampling an artist I'll never meet. I'm sampling people who could literally hit you up, be like, hey, I don't like what they did with that. You know what I mean?
It's the same thing for me connecting to it. I'm like, all right, now that I've like made the connection, like I have to also agree with whatever you made, and then I have to mix it to make sure that we're all happy with it. Otherwise, I let everybody down. Like, it is quite the pressure.
And because it's when you sample someone, you're sampling their fucking art, like their baby. You know what I mean? All these songs I'm making that I have this emotional connection to, like they're the same way with these songs, I'm sure. So when I'm taking it and tampering with it, especially these people I've never personally met, it's a lot of responsibility if you're taking it seriously. So
absolutely,
that was the One Word one, more or less for me, was sonically like, I wanted everything. I wanted to do the best I could production wise, just so like, I wanted to impress them. And then some of the other people who I didn't have as much of a relationship with, it was kind of like, all right, I want the lyrics to really hit home with some sort of, for the Gabriella one, I was like, you know what, I'm really going to be, vulnerable on this one. You know what I mean? I don't want her to think I'm just some, shallow rapper rapping about some random shit. Like I really got vulnerable with that one. The one where I sample Kayla Love's vocals from the Sunny Ruckus song, I was like, I'm gonna do my best to have like bars. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I don't look at myself as that much of a rapper's rapper. Like, you know, I'm not always barred up, you know, with all these crazy syllables. I try my best. But this one I was really like, you know, I was listening to a lot of Jay-Z. Like I just wanted little quotables, like not even like that crazy, but just like have a little statement, like a little something there that you could take a lot out of, you know, just to, you know, because I know she be rapping her fucking ass off.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So I was kind of like, all right, I want to impress her in that arena. I want to impress one word sonically. I want to, or, you know, that was like, all this pressure I was putting on myself for doing these sample-driven songs.
It's good. That pressure pushes you and it drives you.
And when they enjoy it, it's like the best fucking feeling in the world.
Hell yeah.
Like, you know, my reception from Courage on No Place for Me, like you know, through the Facebook message, it sounded like he really enjoyed it. And I was just like, yes. Like that's a super, you know, validating moment.
Very rewarding feeling.
Yes.
I can only imagine for them to say like, hey, you did a good job.
Yeah.
You know, like I made sure to let you know, like with the Double Dragon stuff, like, yo, you killed this shit.
Yeah.
That is very creative.
And that's the one thing too, is like, you know, we're homies. So it's kind of like, of course you'll be honest with me, but also like them, like they could have been like, actually, you know, I take it back, and they wouldn't have any repercussions. Like we don't know each other personally.
That's it.
They, you know, could easily
they put their phone down. And then,
exactly,
and then you're like, fuck.
Exactly. I would just have to deal with that. But like, you know, so it's kind of, they had no reason to, you know, be sensitive about it, and the fact that they still liked it and there was no bias, that you know. That's the type of shit that was super reassuring to me while making them.
I'm sure that's drive to continue making music. Yeah. If there ever was any moment where you thought maybe you shouldn't, I think you might mention, or you should stop making music. I believe you do actually mention that in one of the songs.
No.
I feel like now this is the validation that you need to continue doing it from your peers, at least. Yeah. They're like, yes, this is great. We all approve.
I think as artists, man, like we just always struggle with that shit. Like we're artists are like the most like insecure fucking people in the world, and even when like, especially with rappers, like we're always like having like braggadocious lyrics and shit.
It's the
but
vibe.
It's like, man, this is just me trying to talk myself up. You know what I mean? This is me trying to convince myself that I'm the shit. I don't really think it.
I'm cool. I swear I'm cool. I know I'm cool. In the mirror, like I'm the shit.
That's what those braggadocious bars are for me, man.
No, it's interesting. I never thought about it that way. Sometimes I listen to braggadocio rap and I'm like, bro, shut up. You're not that cool. Like you shit like everybody else. Come on, bro. Like don't even act. But thinking about it as you trying to hype yourself up to give you the courage to finish your own music and put stuff out, that's very informing and very inspiring to me. Yeah. I never heard that before.
I appreciate that.
So before we wrap up here, why don't we talk about what's next for you? I mean, like, I thought that you would have taken a break at some point, but you never did. You know, project, album last year, album this year. Where are we going from here, man?
Technically, my break is like the mixing process, because honestly, because the hardest part for me is making the beats and writing the lyrics. Like when I'm doing that, I'm in a zone. Like I have to be not well practiced, but like, you know, really perpetuating lyrics out, making beats. And then once we get to the mixing process, I'll still write a little bit, I'll still make some beats, but not as hardcore with it. And that's usually my break to like, that's when I'm watching more shows, reading more books, playing video games, more doing like, you know, those kind of activities, because really you're the one putting the hours into the songs, and I'm more or less just kind of like checking off things. Like when I get a mix, let's do this, let's do that, let's do this, let's do that. But I have a lot more free time, so that's technically my break.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, so for this process, that's always been the time for my break, and then I'm usually once it's done, I start gearing up to the next one. So this one, I am taking a little bit more time, which will probably be like another month, where I'm not, you know, because I got some books I'm trying to finish right now. Might have some shows I might fuck around and get a game.
Nice.
But I
enjoy it.
But I mean, we've already talked a little bit about my next project. I have the title already named, and I've, you know, like we were talking about the themes for this one. I already have some things I want for the next project. And one of them was experimenting with more outside production. Like up until now, I've done all the beats, and then at the most, I've had like you do, change up the verse or the outro or something like that.
Hi, J. Cole.
You know what I mean? And exactly. Well, that's a huge inspiration for me, because a lot of people critique his beats and then they start loving it when we start getting on other beats. And I'm like, man, I always see myself.
His beats are so good.
Yeah, I fucking love it. But when he does get on other people's beats, he has a whole different approach to his vocals.
It's ridiculous.
It's a whole different attention. So I do want to kind of like think about that. So that's why we have been talking already about me getting beats from you, like full beats from you, and maybe me overseeing things or, switching things around, but essentially not just saying, hey, you switch up a verse for the feature on this one, or add guitar, or, I've had Isabel change some melodies on my songs or whatever, what she hears. Usually I'm making a beat and she walks by like, oh, I think you should do this. And I'm like, oh, I didn't fucking ask. Whatever. And then when I say ego, dude, I have an ego. And she knows this, because there have been times where I'm like, yeah, I'm not hearing that. All right, I'm kind of, because I'm trying to come up with it, because I don't even know scales like that. So I'm still, and then other times she'll come and do it, and then I'll be like, okay. Yeah, all right, I fuck with that. Or one of them was for No Place For Me, which is a love song about her, and she's like, oh, you should do this. So I was like, well, if anyone's gonna enjoy the song, it's gonna be her, because it's about her. So yeah, that's what the violin will sound like. So this time I'm like, you know what? I'm of course always gonna have my own beats on projects. I don't ever intend to have a whole project produced by someone else.
It wouldn't be you.
Yeah, like it. There's too many themes in the music that I would feel are missing. But for the next one, I'm definitely going to experiment more with more production.
Very excited to do that. Thank you, everybody, if you watched this far.
Yay!
Be sure to check out Dinner on all streaming platforms.
Yep.
And stay tuned for what we have in store for you next.
Peace.